Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the study and reading of our summer study of Esther. I'm Sharice Moore with True Control Ministries, and we're here to discuss Esther. So we're getting ready to open up in prayer. So, ladies, let's pray. Father, we bless you, honor you, and give you the glory. We thank you, Lord God, for this day that you have given us, this moment in time, Lord God, that you've given us. We honor you, Lord God, to be in your presence and to study your word. And we ask, Father, that as we discuss what we've study this week, that we read this week, Lord God, that you would speak to our hearts and give us clarity, understanding, and wisdom. Teach us, Lord God, from the pages of Scripture that we might live out your principles, Lord God, and bring you glory and honor. We love you, Lord God, and we praise you, and we thank you, and we are so thankful that you've given us your word. And we're thankful, Lord God, for every opportunity that you give us to study. So, Lord, we sit at your feet this morning waiting to hear from you. So we thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. So, ladies, we are here today to discuss Esther chapter 5. And we're using the prime method as we've been talking about during the summer, which I think is kind of neat. Working for me. And you know that with using the prime, I always say that on the video especially, so those may pick up chapter 5 and not have seen 4, 3, 2, and 1, the prime stands for what, ladies?
Pizza, ice cream, Reese cups, marshmallows, and Easter eggs.
Don't make me hungry, Lisa, because I have not had breakfast. Okay, go ahead. I have not had my breakfast this morning, and I am hungry. So, what does prime stand for? That was so funny.
Pray, read, interrogate, meditate, encourage.
Very good. And so we just did the prayer, and I'm quite sure when you all started out your study, you prayed. Now we reading. Tell me, ladies, and I love to always ask you this, because every week is different. Every week you all say different things. Even, how many times did you all read Esther 5? And in what versions of the Bible did you read this time? So share with me.
I read it 3 times, and I read it in the ESV, the New King James, and the Jewish Study Bible.
How cool!
Without looking at the notes for that.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else want to share? Tell me what you read. How many times you read it, and in what version of the Bible did you choose?
I read in NASB, ESV, and CB.
NASB, close the door. See me on, please. Close the doors, boys. Okay, so I'm sorry, Betty. I apologize. I opened the door just as I was teaching. What versions did you read? Or was that Sherry? Oh, Sherry.
It was Sherry.
Oh, Sherry.
NASB, ESV, and CJB.
Okay, cool. All right. And she read 3 times. All right, somebody else. How many times? Even if you just read it once, it's fine. Remember, it's laid back. You can either do it as light or as deep as you want. So, what other versions of the Bible did you all do? How many times did you read? Share with me.
I did it in the 3 times, NASB, Complete Jewish Study Bible, and NIV.
Interesting. Okay. That was Lisa, Sherry, Karen. All right.
Worksheets and NASB.
I heard NASB. What was the other one?
Worksheets.
Oh, okay.
Study sheets, or whatever you call them.
Yeah, observation sheets. That's cool. Okay.
American Wonder Version. Observation worksheets.
Okay, wonderful. Now, I read it, funny as it may seem, the theme was going through almost 3 times, everybody. I read it in the New American Standard Bible, which I always do. I start out there, y'all. That's my starting point. And then I read it, interesting enough, I actually read it in the NLT, the New Living Translation, which I normally don't, but this time I did. I said, let me try something different. So I tried New Living Translation, and I did the New King James Version. I did those 3 this time. But I did notice that many of you read the Complete Jewish Study Bible this time. And normally I do. I normally do it in the Jewish Study Bible. But this time I did. How cool. And so, very cool. So now we've done the reading. And that's what we do. Those who are listening to the recording, we read the Bible. Sometimes I do recommend reading it and study it in your study Bible. I always tell you to study it in your study Bible. However, you can also listen or read it in other translations. And just to see, just the nuances and sometimes the way they do it, it's very interesting to see. So I do recommend doing that. So now we're at the I, which means I stands for what, ladies?
Ice cream.
Ice cream for Lisa. For us, it's interrogate.
Because I eat ice cream while I interrogate, right?
Oh, well, that's cool.
No,
I mean,
I'm
that
just
is.
kidding.
You might get you some ice cream, bowl ice cream, and just dig on into the scriptures.
Turtle ice cream.
Turtle ice cream. Okay.
Yeah.
What's turtle ice cream?
That's that stuff where it's got nuts and chocolate and ice
Oh,
cream.
okay.
It's got all that good stuff in it.
Oh, how cool. And you might do that while you're studying. I don't know how to say no. Nothing wrong with that. Get you some good snack and keep going. But that's a wonderful thing to do. So let's take a look at what we did this week in chapter 5. Now, before we go to chapter 5, I love to do a little bit of a review because we are literally going right now discussing halfway through the book of Esther. Time has flown right by. So what have we learned so far from chapters 1 to 4? Someone give me a quick what you've learned. I know it's early morning. What was the first thing we learned in chapter 1? Or some of the things you remember from chapter 1?
That Xerxes was a jerk.
Oh, Karen put it jerk. Mm-hmm.
In my considered opinion. Taking in the nuances of history and that, and yeah.
And so what did he do? It started this whole book of Esther off.
He threw a banquet.
Do a banquet.
A celebration of, what's it called?
He had a party. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but
right? He had a party. And he had such a party. Yeah. He had such a party that he got drunk. Him and his people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what did he ask to be done?
He asked for Vashti to come before the group of people gathered.
Yeah.
With her royal
That
crown.
was his wife.
Right. Royal crown. Come before him. That was his wife. That was the queen.
Or the queen.
And what was her response to that request?
No way, Jose.
And as a result, what just happens or what happens to her? We're just doing a synopsis. It's kind of.
She was ousted.
Yep. She was
kicked to the curb.
Her no longer queen.
Kicked to the curb.
Very good. That's basically chapter 1. That's just what happened. Now chapter 2, go ahead.
With the amazing fact that he ruled from India to Ethiopia. I mean, this is such a huge territory.
It is. Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And so in chapter 2, we know that there's an interval of time that has passed between chapter 1 and chapter 2. And what was the interval of time that had passed between the 2 chapters?
I think 5 years. Was it 5 years? Or was that 5 years to when she became queen? I don't have my notes. Let's see. Where's that?
Somebody with your notes. Look at your notes.
10th month. So 3 years.
Okay. And what happens in that period of time? Now that Queen Vashti is no longer king and he hasn't had his queen any longer, what happens with his anger?
It dissipates because he's also had the time to go try to conquer Greece.
Right. That's how I wanted to make sure we get. Mm-hmm.
And he lost.
And he loses that battle, right? He loses that battle.
So then he's sort of starting to regret that he threw her to the curb, as somebody else said.
And so his those who advise him and who are with him advise him to do what?
To have like a beauty pageant, and he can pick the most beautiful one as his wife to replace Vashti.
Right.
But it was a beauty pageant where the girls didn't have any choice as to whether or not they wanted to participate.
And what was the significance of these girls? They had to be what? That part I do want to review.
Virgins and beautiful.
Virgins, beautiful, and young.
Young.
Or because they are older virgins. If the person who remains faithful to whatever they believe in and don't sleep with anyone, they could be virgins older. They just haven't been picked. They have, but young, beautiful virgins. All right. And so they had this thing where they had to be beautified and made pretty and all that they had to go through. For how long?
6 months.
Was it 6 months?
Oh, hey, that's longer than that. A year, I think.
It was a year. Yeah, it was a year. They had a year of this beautification process, we'll call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then their night would come that they would then enter into the king's palace, right? They would go into the king's palace of virgin and come out of what?
Concubine.
A concubine. That's basically what happened, right, y'all? In the night, they go in a virgin, and they come out in the morning, concubine, and go to the second harem. And unless you were chosen, then that's where you would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so we know that there was a young, beautiful woman. Her name, what was her Jewish name, y'all?
Hadassah.
Hadassah. And her Babylonian name, or Persian name, was what?
Esther.
Esther. She goes in, and we know she's chosen. But what do we know about her that her husband to be does not know?
She's a Jew.
She's a Jew.
And she did not reveal who she was because who told her not to?
Mordecai.
And who's Mordecai?
Her cousin.
Her uncle.
Her cousin.
It was her cousin.
Her cousin who
raised her as, yeah. So basically he became her surrogate father. He adopted her and raised her. That happened. Now, that happens in families all the time, where you have one that's older, right? And the family, there's no more family. And then although they're cousins, they'll become the parent because they'll take the child in and raise the child. That's happened in my family. So my ancestors, where they've taken in my mom and my aunts and stuff when their mom and dad died. And they became their mom and dad, but they were really their cousins or their aunts and stuff like that. And they did that, but they took the children in and they raised them as their own. And so they, that's just the way it was. To raise you took in your family. And so here she's been taken and raised by Mordecai, who's also a Jew. And she is now being presented to the king. And all throughout the time of her presentation and her preparation to go into the king, there was one thing that was said about her. She found what?
Favor.
Okay, she found favor. And so she found favor in the eyes of those who were arranging all this, but she also found favor in the eyes of who?
King Ahasuerus, Xerxes,
yes.
Ashvarosh.
Yes. And what does he ultimately do?
He picks her to be
her queen.
He made her queen. Right. So she becomes Queen Esther. All right. Fast forward to chapter 3. What goes on in chapter 3 and what is the time frame of chapter 3?
You forgot something in chapter 2.
I did? What
yes, you did.
Mordecai discovering the plot.
Yeah.
That's
sorry about that.
The whole thing.
Mordecai discovers a plot. What plot does he discover?
He discovers that 2 of the king's guards, Bigthan and Teresh, are plotting to kill him because they become angry with the king. So he tells Esther, and Esther tells the king in his name. Nothing's done at that point, but it's written down in the Chronicles, which is going to play a role.
The 2 guys the
Well,
two
they're put to
conspirators
death,
were
but I
put to
meant
death. Yeah, but something was done for
Mordecai's
Mordecai.
not praised. That's right. He's not.
Right.
Very good points, ladies. Notes, I want you to note that I'm not looking at notes, so I'm going from memory. So that's probably I missed that one by mistake because I'm not looking at my notes. So, very good. So thank you for pointing that out because would not want to leave that out because that plays a part coming soon. All right. Yes, it does. So, very good. Very good. Now, chapter 3. What is the interval of time between chapter 2 and chapter 3? And then tell me what's going on in chapter 3.
It's 5 years later from
Yeah.
her becoming queen.
Yes. 5 years later. So she's been queen for 5 years. And what happens in chapter 3?
Let me think. What happens? Oh, we're introduced to Haman.
Oh, somebody comes on the scene. Haman. And who is Haman? And what do we know about him? Y'all remember?
He was an
He's
Agagite.
mean.
Yeah,
He's mean. And
he was an Agagite.
Mm-hmm.
And the king has elevated him for whatever reason. I don't remember if it was given to a very high position in the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
such that people were called to bow down and worship him. And he has a lot of authority.
Yes, he does.
So everyone basically, I guess, was doing that, or at least we assume they were. But Mordecai was not. He did not bow down and worship Haman when called to. So some of Haman's guards or supporters or something saw that he wasn't doing that and asked him, "Why aren't you doing this?" He said, "Because I'm a Jew." And so they went and told Haman, tattletales that they were. And then Haman becomes enraged because Mordecai the Jew was not bowing down and worshiping or whatever, paying homage, whatever he was called to do to Haman.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that, because Haman was such a fair-minded man, he decided he wanted to have all the Jews destroyed throughout the entire kingdom, from Ethiopia to India.
I like how Karen put that. He said because he's such a fair-minded man, because of one Jewish man's actions, he's gonna put all the Jews to death.
Yep.
Okay? So he goes to the king and he does what?
He embellishes what the Jews are doing or not doing in the land and makes them out to be a people that are not honoring Ahasuerus, not following the rules, and not giving homage or something like that, like they're supposed to. And that the king would be better off if he was rid of them, and that Haman was willing to pay money to the king's treasury if he would let Haman develop an edict or a law saying that all these Jewish people should be annihilated. Which the king said, "Oh, sure, whatever." Haman gave him his signet ring, and well, that's kind of what he did. I get the impression he didn't even care. He just said, "Here, he's because he trusted him, I guess," and gave him a signet ring. And there goes the king's scribes, wrote out the edicts in every known language and tongue of that day, and sent all of the edicts to every, as Karen has said, to that huge kingdom. Every little corner of the kingdom got an edict. So, do we go all the way down to that part? Go ahead.
And then they sat down and they got drunk, right?
There you go.
Sat down to drink.
Drunk and celebrated it.
Yeah.
But yet all of Susa was reacting how?
They were confused.
Confusion.
Confusion is going throughout Susa. All right, that takes us to chapter 4. We're at chapter 4 at this point. And
and the ironic thing, and I'm interrupting you, so I apologize.
That's all right. Well, no, you go ahead.
But the ironic thing is, I think that the Jews that were scattered throughout Persia were relatively cooperative, that they were assimilating, and those that hadn't or had wanted to go back home had already gone back home by this point in time.
Right.
So you think about it, now they're in the danger of getting annihilated, and then during the Roman period when they were left back, many of them were back in their own area, they were horrible. Not horrible, but they were constantly rebelling,
Yeah.
And they got massacred at the end there too, but at least for that, they had done something.
Yeah.
Whereas for this, they hadn't.
You're right.
Other than one man hadn't bowed down and paid homage to Haman.
Because Haman was such a fair-minded man. And he
He
took it so well.
He took it real well. Okay,
Don't worry.
and I agree
Chapter
with you.
5 is funny. I like chapter 5.
I know chapter
When
5.
we get to it, but we can't skip chapter 4.
We had to skip chapter 4 because 4 is important. So now we're in 4, and so when Mordecai learns what is of the edict that's come out, right? What does he do?
He mourns. So he mourns in the tradition of the day, putting on sackcloth and ashes, and crying and wailing loudly in public.
At the gate.
Yeah.
At the gate. Couldn't go inside the gate, but he was on the outside the gate. Okay.
Mhm.
And so word gets to Esther, Queen Esther. She sends out her eunuch to go find out what is his problem. What's going on with him?
What's my crazy young cousin
You know,
doing?
what are you doing? And then the word comes back to him why he's doing what he's doing. And he actually had a copy of the edict, right?
Mhm.
Then, okay, now, and he wants, what does he want Esther, Queen Esther, to do?
To go to the
Before
king.
that, though, there's like one nuance you left out, Sharice.
Okay,
And that
what's
was,
the
she was
nuance?
trying. She sent them out to
Yeah.
bring clothes.
To give
You
him
know, because he's like,
clothes.
you know,
Cover up.
So he wouldn't have to
Yeah.
wear the itchy burlap.
Yes, of course. And then, okay, he wants her to go into the king and plead the case for the Jews, right?
Right.
And her response to that was what?
No. Can't do that.
no, she
Haven't
didn't
been
say no.
She didn't
She
say
didn't say
no. She said it was very risky. You know what the
'Cause the
king
king
can
had-
do to people who do come to him unsummoned. So,
And she hadn't been called to the king for how long at this
a
point?
month, 30 days.
A month.
Yep.
He hadn't called for his wife in a month. Okay. And so when Mordecai heard of this response from Esther, what was his response back to her? That's the best part. Don't think what? That
Don't
you
think
that you can
you're gonna be
escape.
Don't
Yeah,
think you can
spared.
escape just because you're
you're in the king's palace. Yeah.
in the king's
Mhm.
palace.
that the deliverance of the Jews will come from somewhere. But for your household and your family, they'll perish forever because you didn't stand up basically for them, right? Okay, so what does the queen then
I guess,
respond back? Go ahead, Lisa.
you know, I guess he says that because back maybe coming even from Daniel's day, those who are in Daniel that remember, I'm too tired to think of it exactly, but there was one point, I think it was Lion's Den point, where the Persian king was reminded, that's Darius at that point, right? No, I can't remember. Anyway, he couldn't change the ruling that would have saved Daniel from the lion's den,
Mhm.
because I think that was kind of the unspoken rule in the Persian kingdom that when a king makes an edict, that's it. It can't be taken back. He can't do even the king could not intervene for Daniel and keep him from going to the lion's den. So I wonder if that's what they knew. If that's why he said that to her. You're a Jew. This is an edict, and when they find out, even your position as queen is not going to save you. I wonder if that's what he was referring to. We didn't talk about that part. I just happened to think
No,
about
we
that.
didn't.
I don't know if
But that's a good question because she wasn't going to be able to. It wasn't going to
Anyway.
skip her.
Yeah.
Wouldn't skip her. The only way it would skip her is that they never
He
found
used that
out.
to put the fire under her foot, to take a stand for something she knew to be right to do and to save her people.
Okay. So what does she say she's going to do after that little fire under the feet thing?
She wants to have all the Jews gathered in Susa and have a feast. I'm sorry, have a fast, not a feast. Reading it wrong. Sorry.
That's what I'd be doing if I think I was going to die. Woohoo! Eat my life for the next 3 months.
Right. Yeah, anyway, don't eat and drink for 3 days. And then she and her woman were going to do fast. She was going to also fast. And then she was going to go to the king. And if she perishes, she perishes.
She doesn't. Yeah. So
Just going to the king.
everybody did.
Just going to-
Everybody did it. Mordecai did what she said, and they did it. And
Okay.
here we go to chapter 5. 3.
That brings us to 5. Right. Now, we're at chapter 5 now. Now we're going to interrogate 5. Very good review. And it's important to review to keep up with those things. You know, we don't want to just go along and Maryland. Just keep going.
The
And
historical books are a little bit easier to review than
yeah,
some
they are.
Gospels and stuff.
Yeah, but this was really good. There was a good review. So now, what day is?
Like that.
Yeah. So what day is it now?
3 days.
Yes, the third day. 3 days later. What does Esther now do?
puts on her fancy clothes and her bling bling and gets all nice and smell goodly and goes before the king.
Oh,
She
she goes and
goes.
stays in the palace entrance.
Palace in front of his rooms. Where
Yeah,
right?
where
Yeah,
he
there
can
you go.
see her.
Guess
Right.
he's on his throne. I guess he peeks through the door and he sees her standing there.
He
I guess
sees her, doesn't he? And so, what does the king? How does the king respond to Esther, and why?
He raises his golden scepter.
Yep.
And says, "Come here."
So that means she found favor, and he's not going to kill her.
He's not
Right.
going to kill her, and that's okay. That's a good thing, right? So, when Esther is granted access to the king, what does she do?
She invites the king and
Before that,
Haman to come.
Before she gets to that part, what does she do
Okay.
when she's
she touches the tip of the scepter.
Yeah, she comes in, she touches. I thought that was like, okay.
That's so weird.
That's like, okay, it must be what they do. There must have been the custom during that time. So
probably. I guess that's an extension of his authority and power, and so that's her way of
very interesting.
Anyone's way of acquiescing to that authority and power.
Yes.
At least she didn't have to kiss him. Ew.
True. So what does the king ask Esther? She touches the scepter.
Sweetheart, what's the matter?
Okay. Now, and what does he say? He said, "What's going on
troubling you, Queen Esther? What's your request? I'll give you up to half the kingdom. Just tell me what do you want?"
And very, very interesting, that promise that he makes to her. And so I did a side note. I got my little side notes as I'm studying. I don't know if you all came up with a side note, but I got a side note. And my side note says, how do you think the king knew something was bothering Esther, the queen?
Probably
because
all over
she
her
showed
face.
up without being
standing there.
Yeah, she's standing there. She might have looked scared or upset, or maybe
possibly concerned, since she was taking her life in her hands, or her life was in his hands.
Maybe she was even crying. We don't know. It doesn't say
I know
that.
we don't. But you
maybe.
Wonder, he had
Did he even realize he'd been there the whole month?
I don't know. But I just wondered, that just came to my mind, like, okay, I read it all the time, and you know what goes on, the story, how it plays out, and everything. But the interesting piece of it is that upon her entrance into being allowed to see him, he knew that there was something wrong. And I just thought, that's interesting. It doesn't tell us how he knew, but just, I wonder how he knew. Was it her face? But, that's just the questions I throw out of my mind that I think about. I know you all may have some too. And I also thought, just looking at that, what is also interesting is, to me, is the relationship the monarchy has with their spouses, with the spouses of, the kings. And, you don't, it's different than what we think of as a married couple, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love my husband dearly, and my husband is a minister of the Word of God and all, but I've never gone and touched the scepter, or, what I'm saying, like when I go before him. What I'm saying? I'm saying, y'all laugh. I'm saying, what I'm saying? Like, okay, no, because there are many people, when they go before their husbands. I'm not kidding. Even today.
Funny.
And I know it does sound crazy, but we're women. So, but what I'm saying is, like, go in. There are many women that I know that when, because their husbands are ministers, that they go literally, they call him by whatever title. They literally do. And I've never done, I'm just like, William.
They call him like pastor or something?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Reverend.
If a reverend, if that's the bishop, bishop. And I'd be like, isn't that your husband? I call him William. I've been calling him all these years. And so I'm saying, and so, and I just thought that was interesting, because when you think of marriage, not just these kind of things that pop in my mind. And it's so interesting. This is my side notes. I hope y'all share your side notes and things that come as you were studying, because it's fascinating where the mind goes as you're studying. But this happened this particular week while I was studying this. There was an article or something, it was on Facebook, on email or something I got, about the Queen and the Prince and Princess of England, those in Britain and all, and how they interact with one another, how that they're not allowed to hold hands in public and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, I saw that this week. It was so funny while I was studying this, and I thought, wow, there are rules to how you go in the monarchy in these
Yeah.
kingdoms. How you this is just fascinating to me. Like that would just like blow my mind. I think I'd have to be going to a year training for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
That's
'Cause
probably
I
what
think,
they taught them in that sort of
yeah,
that beauty pageant thing.
they must have had to teach them that because
A
my
little bit
brain
of the
wouldn't even go
courtroom.
there.
Yeah.
You know, that was
I
just
Did you
guess
ever
what?
watch? Have you watched The Crown on
Yeah.
Netflix?
no,
Good.
no, I've never looked at it.
Because yeah, you should, because they do. You see some of the stuff. You see all the tradition and stuff like that they have
Oh,
to
I have to look
follow.
at that.
Yeah.
I'm have to
I
look at
guess
that.
the point is that at least publicly, you know, where
Mhm.
everyone can see them. But I would think most of the time they were subjects first, wives or husbands or kids or grandkids or great grandkids, and future rulers second. So
Very interesting.
tradition has to be followed, and respect and
And
authority is the main thing for monarchies, even from their spouses.
yeah,
So
and
but
that's
to
the
take
thing.
this on a more personal level, there, Sharice.
Mhm.
So does William have a scepter?
No,
Because you said you don't touch it.
Oh boy! Here we
no,
go.
he doesn't have a scepter. No, but I was just thinking about myself. I can't imagine if he had one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch this. I'm talking. I mean, it was like when I read, I'm like, oh my goodness, they have to be so formal. I mean, I got to touch the scepter to talk to my husband. I'm like, wow, it's different. It's just these things are some, I just never thought, and I just thought that was king. That's just me. Side note, y'all. That's why we get to do that. We get to laugh.
But marriages were such, that like you didn't necessarily call your husband by his first name anyway. You might call him Mr. As opposed
Wow.
to William. Or I would have called my husband Mr. Ursel as opposed to calling him Jim or other not so friendly
And even Esther called him
things at the
king.
time.
Yeah,
As we get
I
through
just
her
thought that was
conversation with
interesting.
him. So,
To
yeah,
me,
it's just different from our mindsets.
It is. But that's cool. That's just that side note, y'all. And if y'all have side notes that came to mind as you were studying, this is cool because we can do that now because we just kind of laid back and doing Esther. This is the only time you will get to discuss it like this.
So, what have we learned today, ladies? Do not touch your husband's scepter. That's
Y'all are so funny. And so, okay.
I want to share something real quick. I have a friend whose husband was a coach, and she always spoke about him in the third person. It took me months to realize that when she was saying be coach, she was talking about her own husband. He quit coaching like 25 years ago, and to this day, she still refers to him as the coach.
Oh, wow.
And it's not like he was Tom Landry or any famous collegiate coach. He was a little 3A baseball coach in Caldwell, Texas. So it's still
maybe in his own mind he was the Tom Landry of
What I don't know is he may have a scepter and I just didn't know.
He had a bat.
Only this group of women we can get together and laugh over Esther. I mean, I think this is a hoot. But that
you're taping this too, though. I forgot.
I know.
Oh no, that's
but
right.
That's all right. Because maybe then when they listen to the recording, they'll decide to join the class and realize that we really do enjoy our class, right? Okay.
I just want to say you can't hold me responsible for what I say at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So, all right. So
now, sick, Lisa.
Still, you
but
can't hold me
it's a fun time together as we discuss Esther. I've never discussed Esther like this, so this is fun. So
that's true.
Now, what is Esther's response to the king when he says, "Okay, what's troubling you? What is your request? Even if it's half of the kingdom, it shall be given to you." What does Queen Esther say?
If it pleases the king, may the king and Haman come this day to the banquet I have prepared for him.
I like how she put that voice on, don't y'all?
Mm-hmm.
If it pleases you. So, now she's inviting them to this banquet. Mm-hmm. She's inviting them to the banquet. And so how does the king react and respond to Esther's request?
I couldn't figure this part out. Was he excited to eat or was he excited just to please her?
Would it please his heart?
He says, bring Haman quickly so that we may do what Esther desires. Was he hungry or was he just Infatuated.
He hadn't seen her in over a month now. Come on.
Maybe he got happy.
but he was probably seeing others in between there, So
Right.
anyway.
Many. But he saw her, and he did respond. Get Haman, let's go. Right.
Right.
Let's go do what she pleases. So
Let's go.
now, let's go. And so, while at the banquet, what does the king again ask Esther?
Well, this is after they're drinking.
Drinking.
Yeah.
They're drinking wine. So there's a lot of mention of drinking wine.
They love to drink. I can say they like to drink here, boy. I tell you they do.
So what's your petition? And for it shall be granted to you. And again, what is your request? I'll give you up to half the kingdom, if that's what you want.
Right. He again says this to her. And so how does Esther respond to the question from the king? This is so fascinating. How she respond? What did she say?
She just said, well, if I found favor in your sight and if I please you, would you just grant my petition? Would you grant me to have another banquet for you and tomorrow? I want to give another banquet. And can you and Haman come tomorrow too?
Wow. So she's going to have this other banquet, another banquet for him.
And then at that banquet, then she's going to do what the king has said.
Yeah.
Right.
Then she'll answer
that
him.
means she'll answer.
She will answer him then at that banquet. Okay. Now that's the scene right there. But then the scene switches, doesn't it? You love this. We were doing a movie. The scene switches. We had another scene. And how does Haman react to the two invitations he has received from the queen? What's his reaction?
He was so proud and puffed up and happy and joyful, he skipped out of there.
He sure did, didn't he? He was happy.
Skipping all the way home.
Glad and pleased.
Until he saw Mordecai.
He was
and
pleased.
being the fair-minded man that he was.
Mm-hmm. He went from happy and pleased of heart to what?
Anger.
Filled with wrath.
Rage and anger.
And actually, okay, in the ESV it says when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate that he neither rose nor trembled before him.
Yeah, he didn't bow or pay homage like he's supposed to.
At all.
And he didn't tremble. That's just like jeepers. What do you want, guy?
Probably didn't even look at him.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Now, here's my side note, y'all, because I always got a side note going on. My side note, when Haman came out from the banquet that he had spent with the king and the queen, and he was pleased of heart, my side note was, appearance was it was a great thing to be included and the only one invited to the great event of being with the queen and the king, right? That was like, wow for him, right? But then I put this question, but was it? I said, but was it really a great thing? To Haman's eyes right now, it's a great thing. But was it really a great thing?
No.
No.
Because we know the rest of the story.
We know the rest of the story. But was it? And so, although Haman was filled with anger, what did he do?
He restrained himself.
He restrained himself, kept himself under control.
He restrained himself. Wow. But he was filled with anger. And I got a side note to that one. He may appear to have been in control, but was he really?
No. He wasn't.
No, he wasn't. And so what did Haman do once he was with his wife and friends? What did he do?
He goes home and he brags to them about all the glory and the power and the prestige and the honor and all that he has, all that he's done for the king and all the kings have done to him.
And the number of his sons.
And the number of his sons, right?
Number of his sons.
Now even the queen is inviting him and him alone to a banquet with the king.
Yes. So he's really, 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 stoked on this, isn't it? Okay. And so.
But it's worth nothing to him as long as he sees Mordecai the Jew sitting in front of the king's gate.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Right.
That just shows you how much he's eaten alive by that. The anger.
Right. Because I think the next question I said was, what was Haman's feelings regarding all he had and being invited to the banquet? To answer that, was it satisfying for him?
Nope.
No.
Not
ultimately.
No, not ultimately. It was not. It was not satisfying for him. And I said a side note, and I got my little side notes. All he had, and his position, and his all the elite things that's going on with him was it not satisfying? No. Why? Why was he not satisfied with everything that he had? All the things he done listed. He done listed all this stuff. But he was not satisfied. And what happened and why? Why was he not satisfied?
Because the one
Mordecai
man would
wasn't
not
following
bow
him
down
for him.
to him.
Yeah.
Right. He
This is
allowed
pride.
his,
Yeah, pride
yeah,
getting in.
yeah. When you look at that, he allowed his anger to control him, right? He allowed his anger to, because he was filled with anger. And even though he appeared to be in control, he really wasn't. Not receiving what he thought was his right consumed him, right? He thought it was his right to be bowed to and trembled at. And that just consumed him, the fact that this one man would not do this, didn't it? And he wasn't satisfied with the fact that, he's already going to kill him, right? He already has the, see, this is the thing. He already has the edit already out, but he's still not satisfied because it's almost like he was, what is the word I'm looking for? Just totally one-track minded when it came to the fact that he had to be bowed to, wasn't it? This was all consuming for Mordecai, wasn't it?
But
Right.
Mordecai's behavior is very.
I'm not Mordecai. Haman.
I mean,
Haman.
Haman. Yeah, I even said Mordecai. Haman's behavior is very much human, very much the way we are today too.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Very
as,
good.
it doesn't even have to be this bad. We can just get angry over a parking place.
Oh,
I can't
yes.
believe that woman. She took that place out, and that's being silly about it, but we can be a Haman when it comes to something that insignificant.
Oh, please
And
don't say that. Yes, indeed.
and to think of, and then you can just escalate it. We each have our own story and example we can give of this, where we've been a Haman, and with something.
Oh, yes.
It just eats away
Oh, yes.
at us.
I heard somebody else said something. I heard a voice in the background of Lisa. Did I miss somebody's comment? Don't want to miss somebody's comment. We all got some good side notes here. So what advice is Haman given? By whom? And how does Haman respond to the advice?
He gets such good advice from more fair-minded people.
I know. Isn't it wonderful? He gets great advice, doesn't he?
Really? Great advice.
What was the advice he received? Who, by whom?
The advice came from Zeresh, his wife, and all of his friends. That's who it came from.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else can say what the advice was.
What was the advice?
Gallows 50 cubits high, made in the morning. Ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it, then go joyfully with the king to the banquet.
Wow.
And this pleased him.
And it pleased him, didn't it? He was pleased with the advice, wasn't he? Side note.
Gallows made.
Yes. Here's a side note. The wife said, joyfully go, with the king to the banquet, after having someone hanged.
Right.
Enjoying the misery of others. And I put, wow. I mean, you're going to have someone hanged, and you're going to go skipping along and merrily going along. I'm so excited. I murdered him.
But what is one man's life in comparison with all the Jews that are left in Persia?
What
right?
about all the ones who are probably see, that's just what we do too. We don't see all the ones who probably are honoring this, bowing down and giving him homage. We only focus on the one that isn't. Haman, he just had eaten and talked with two of the most powerful people, particularly the king, of course, in his whole world. And yet all he could think about is this one little impotent Jew. I mean, Mordecai had a position, of course, but I'm just like, this just blows your mind. That
it does.
That'd be like sitting down and eating with the president and then turning around and fussing at your neighbor or something. I'm just something is so insignificant. And I'm just like, oh wow, it's us.
No, that's good.
It's human behavior, guys.
It is.
Exactly what we do. So, my goodness.
So somebody else as Lisa she just pointed that out. So my last question for that was, what do you think about the attitude of Haman and his wife? So, look at this attitude. Yes, it's definitely a human condition and what we do in humanity. But it's just the attitude is just, first of all, look what the wife said. I mean, I was blown away with the wife. I mean, I'm just going to put the whole family is just a hoot. You know what I'm saying?
They're all dysfunctional.
Yeah. You know, talking about the D and the dysfunctional. I mean, just like, okay, well, you know what? Hey, this is what you can do. Have some gallows made and kill the man in the morning. And then go joyfully off with the king. I mean, okay, so all of y'all are sick. Okay. All of y'all are corrupt. I see this now. Really? I mean, wow. Look at that attitude. Look at that attitude, y'all. And that's all of chapter 5.
And that's part of being right. And part of that attitude is pagan attitude.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just a great example of being pagan.
Yeah. I mean,
the sad part that even
Yeah.
if this were to happen, if he had Mordecai killed on the gallows, which would have humiliated Mordecai and made Haman look so more powerful and proud, this would only be a temporary effect because people like him are empty and hollow without Christ. And this would just be a temporary little buzz until the next Mordecai came along, or the next thing that came along that drove him mad and he was obsessed by and got angry over. It's really
correct.
It's really, really sad.
He could have wiped out. He could have wiped out everybody in the kingdom then, for everybody he was taking offense with, right?
Yeah.
Because he was controlled by his anger. So now you had time for the M, and that's the meditation part. Where after you've done your interrogation of the scripture, which now we've done the PRI, we're now at the M level, where you would then now think over everything that you have done for your interrogation, whether you did a light one or a deep one, and you think about it over the week or over the course of time, and just ponder what you've seen in this chapter. And what did you all glean? What came to mind from you all from studying and meditating on Esther 5? What was your M this week? Share with me. Nobody had an M? Everybody was quiet. The room goes silent.
I'm asleep.
M, ladies, what came to mind? I know Lisa already said one of things. She did. Because you remember you pointed out the fact.
I compared it to us as believers because I still think that we struggle, even though we're freed from the power of the sin of anger and jealousy and pride and all that stuff. But what I was thinking to compare it to is that we've been, as Haman had all that the Persian world offered to him. He had the ear of the king. He had a position and power and authority such that everyone bowed down, and he had everything, humanly speaking, at that moment in time in his particular world that physically and earthly and temporary that he could want, right? He had it all right at his fingertips. We have the greatest gift of all time, and that's salvation. And yet, God gave us salvation as Christians, and yet we still pull the Haman card every now and then. We're still not thankful sometimes. I don't mean all the time. We're still not thankful. So I did self-evaluation, thinking, am I like Haman? Am I jealous or envious or proud? Do I think I'm better than other believers because I may understand this scripture better than them, or I may think I've got one up on this kind of theology or whatever it might be, or and it really made me soul search how much of my life, how many areas of my life do I act like a Haman? How often does this creep up in my life? I'm not saying we're Hamans, because I do think most of this is steered from his pagan heart, but we can still battle with sin, so we can still battle with some of the same prides, some of the same things. So I don't know.
Yeah, and this is why the Bible can still speak to you, even though it was written, several thousand parts of it were written several thousand years ago. Is that it describes the human condition so well? Yeah.
Very good, very good. Anyone else? What did you get from your meditation? You had time to meditate and think about what you studied in 5. What came to you? You're still within the confines of Scripture, but we always look at the Bible and see what God is saying about attitudes and things. You can see it from the historical accounts of people's lives. We can actually learn from others' behavior. We choose not to sometimes, but we can learn from those that go before us.
I thought it was interesting to compare Esther and Haman and their reactions to getting something they desired. Haman went right straight to the king. He heard about Mordecai. He was incensed. He went right straight to the source. And what did he do? King, he kind of he embellished. I won't say he lied. He embellished what was going on. And boy, he got the signet ring and the edicts went out and boom. Esther, on the other hand, prayed, fasted, and prepared. She came in calm, respectful. Now we're going to play a little bit here because Scripture's not clear on everything. We don't know her mind, but she didn't just run into the king and blurt it all out. She didn't do what Haman did. She came in with kindness and respect and honoring him, and I wonder if maybe that's not a good lesson for us to learn. Sometimes I think there's a time when you need to blurt out, look, I need this, I need help, someone's been hit by a car on the road, or whatever, but then there are other times I think that we need to just stand back and be patient and pray and prepare. Sometimes I wonder if we just blurt out too much. We just go because it's something in the heat of the moment, like a Haman. We don't really think about our situation. And again, that's putting a little bit into what we don't know, why Esther waited, why she wanted the banquet that day, why she wanted the next banquet. We don't know why, per se. She could have just told the king right out, well, guess what? This guy's a traitor. Let me, whatever. But she did a little bit differently. So anyway, that's one of my side notes. Can you compare and contrast them? I don't know if you got
that's cool.
There's you have a choice between being courageous like Esther was, which she was at the beginning of the chapter, and going to the king, or so she was being relatively selfless, right?
Yeah.
To being so selfish.
Versus selfish, like
like Haman.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else?
And luckily we can't do it on such a large scale as he did.
Oh no.
We glad at that one.
But
we can't actually, but some people in the world can.
Some people do try.
Yes, but I can't. Let's put it that way.
No,
I don't have that kind of influence. Thank God.
No, really. I'm with you on that one, Karen. Thank the Lord we don't, because I think some of us might. If we give over to the anger, we could. Anyone else? Don't want to break nobody off from sharing their moments of meditation, what they saw. Very cool. You know me, I do the self-check. I'll share mine while maybe somebody else will chime in with my, I got the self-check thing going on whenever I study scripture. Once I finish and get all that the Lord has, and I stop and say, okay, now, okay, let me check my own life. Cause I can see the problems with Haman, like you said, right? Woohoo! Wow, he got some issues. Okay, but let me not talk about Haman right now. Let me take a look at my issues, right? And so my self-check was, do I desire to be a part of the elite clique? I came to mind because he was really stoked on the fact that he was with the heads. You know what I mean? Like really with the big wigs. You know what I'm saying? That was like really great for him. And I thought about that, and I said, now, on the real tip, do I desire to be a part of the elite clique? I had to think about that one. Am I aware, and do I notice when others invite or include me with the ulterior motives, or am I so wrapped up in myself that I miss it? That you get invited to these big wig events or whatever it is, and you think it's, you're so stoked and worked up on being included in the big wig event, whatever it may be, that and it doesn't necessarily have to be with the President of the United States. It could be an elite group within the body of Christ. It could be anything. And you feel like, oh, I'm just privileged to be in the presence. You know how we do. We do that. Many of us do. You know how we are. Okay. And we're so worked up about being invited to the big event that nobody else has been invited to. The rest of the community have been left out, but you got the sole invitation to go. So you're gonna get the hobnob with the elite of whatever the clique is. Okay, and it could be anything. Okay, it could be your HOA, presidents. I mean, it could be anything. People, you'd be surprised at what really get people, make people happy. And so my question to myself, well, do I realize I'm going there for actually the ulterior motive as to why they want me there? But I miss it because I'm so wrapped up in being invited that I don't really see it. I'm not discerning because I'm not listening. I'm just excited about being a part of the elite clique. Okay. And then the third one that came to me was, do I crave position more than relationship? Okay, I'm busy about what I'm going to get. And like Haman, he was really worked up about, he didn't care that he was going to kill people, this stuff. I'm with the queen and the king, I've got all this stuff. Look at me, and do I crave that more than relationship? And 4, do I allow anger to consume and control me? Because remember now, he got angry. And although he looked like he was in control, he really wasn't. Okay. And then 5, am I satisfied or content? And do I constantly desire more? I mean, here Haman had all of this stuff, and he still wasn't satisfied. He needed to kill Mordecai. He just, I need to do this. And do I enjoy the pain of others? Do I secretly take pleasure in pain I have been instrumental in causing for others? I got a lot out of this week because that's the attitude he had. I think I was blown away by the joyfully go with the king after you hang somebody. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, that was really extreme. But taking it back and taking it down the scale, do we sometimes secretly enjoy the pain of something that we've caused? And it may not be someone's death, but you know how we stir the pot, okay, if we're honest. Sometimes we do stir the pot as believers, unfortunately. We should not be doing these things, but as Lisa pointed out, we are still human and in flesh and are fighting and warring against flesh. And if we don't think we are, go read Romans 7, where Paul tells us that we are, okay, that there is a war goes on with us in our flesh. That's why we have to stay before the Lord and stay in his word, because we will give over to those fleshly things. The former life will creep up. And if we're not careful, some of those things that have not yet been worked out in us, they will show their little ugly head. And secretly, although we put on that smiley face and appear like all is well, secretly in the backdrop, we kind of get excited, like, yeah, they got it, didn't they? You know what I'm saying? And we were instrumental in them getting it because we're the ones that exposed it, or, and that does go on. And if we pretend that it doesn't happen, I think that's detrimental to us as believers, that it does happen. We have to be on guard all the time, that we do not fall prey to the things to the things and the attitude that Haman had on a smaller scale. Okay, so that was my meditation this week, and then I put mine out there now. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
I don't have one that I want to share, but boy, do I feel convicted about what you just shared and what Lisa shared.
Oh, wow. Cool. Our Lord is ministering, because we go through so much. And I was blown away this week. I was like, I never had this many. I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to be on my knees. Oh my goodness. Wow, Lord, okay.
I'm thinking I need to be flat out with my head in the rug at this point. I really needed to hear what you had to say this morning, Sharice.
Oh, praise the Lord. God is good. And so that's wonderful. How God is ministering to us through Esther. I mean, I just love it. I do. I love it. And I so enjoy you ladies because I have studied Esther before, don't get me wrong. And I have been in classes for Esther, but this has been a hoot and a holler and a good time in Esther. I mean, we have been so raw with it that it's been really good. And I do appreciate on you ladies. So I need to know what you did for your E last week, which means encourage. And encourage means to encourage to share with others what you've learned, whether it be your family members or siblings, your children, your neighbor, people, strangers, I don't care. Social media, whatever you did. What was your E that you did for last week's, and what do you think you might do for this week's? And the room goes silent. Okay, let me try it this way. Did y'all do an E last week? And if you didn't, it's fine.
I've been talking to my mom and my husband over dinner, usually about Esther and stuff and what I'm studying. So
that's cool. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Anybody else?
I haven't done it yet, but I will.
Okay. Cool.
I've been sharing with my ladies in water aerobics.
Oh, how cool is that? Really good. That's cool. So you can go anywhere. And you've learned so much that you never thought you could learn this stuff out of Esther. You know what I'm saying? You think about it, it's historical, we give the historical account, but there are a lot of life lessons in Esther and things that we can apply. So cool. So just be thinking on how, because you can share the whole thing in one time if you want, You can pull out some points from after you finish the whole thing and maybe share with people. I mean, you can do it anyway, but I just want us to be mindful that what we take in, we need to give out. Because you never know who you might help. You just never know, who you might help from what you're studying. And just sharing bits and pieces of it with them could wet their whistle to want to go to know more themselves. And go, wow, that's in the Bible? Yeah. There's a lot of, the Lord shows us through Scripture that we don't take out of context by no means. We learn from the lives of others that have gone before us on what we're not to do and what we are to do. We can look at Daniel and see what we should do and how the attitude we should have living in a pagan society. And we look at Haman and see what we should not do, and how we should not react. So we can learn a whole lot. And then we look at Esther and see how she went into the king and how respectful she was of the king's position, which for many of us would probably be humbling. Sometimes we have to humble ourselves in front of those who are of authority, not bowing down to them, but being respectful. So we can see that, Very good, ladies. Well, we have made it through 5 chapters of the book of Esther. Can you all believe it? It seems like we just got started, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Sharice,
And so,
chapter 10 is very short. So are you going to do it with chapter 9, or are you going to do it and have like a massive review?
You had that last one so right.
Okay.
10 will be done by itself, but we'll be doing a massive review of Esther 1 through 9. So yeah, we're gonna do week 10. I'm not gonna incorporate it with the rest of week 9. Let's do week 9, and then on that last week we come together. We're really gonna close out Esther, the book of Esther, like only this class could do. We're gonna do it like only this class.
We're going to be talking about scepters and touching scepters.
You're so funny. Talk about scepters, okay? So next week we're gonna be on chapter 6. And we're going to be looking at chapter 6. And I mean, the story and the plot thickens, y'all. The story and the plot thickens. It gets better and better with time, baby. Chapter 6. Even though many of us know the accounts and things, it's going to be fun to dig it out this week. And remember, as I always like to remind you all, you can go as deep or as light as you like. So if you only read it one time and you're not doing all the notes and all that, don't feel bad because you're not required to do. No study guide or anything. I will have questions when we come together. That's just my way. That just helps with the discussion, that's all. To lead us. And then you all can give your side notes and what you gleaned and what you saw and what you studied. You all can share what you got from it. Any questions?
Are you going to go straight through? Or are you going to be taking a break?
I think because of the timing of the fact that I think we got started a couple of weeks later than I anticipated, I think I'm going straight through because that's the only way we can finish so I can get a break before we start the next one. Because I think we finish up when? When is the finishing date? We're on 5 now, right? Look at the calendar. What is this? I don't know. This 21st, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. We will finish the last week of August, last Saturday in August. And that will give us a couple of weeks off. Think about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks off in September. That gives us a break before we gear up into John, which is a longer study. And it's going to be, going to be longer. Okay. So I'm going to go straight through.
Okay, good. I noticed that on the writing the scripture thing that we're also doing John the last part of the year too. So that was very it was good of you. Yes,
I did do that at the end because I knew we were all going to be 2 of the classes are going to be in studying in the book of John, and I thought it'd be neat that you go ahead and write it out. Go ahead and start writing it out because we're going to be in John for 21 weeks, and that incorporates our Christmas break and our spring break when we go out. So those weeks and breaks, we will be in John all the way. I think if I'm not mistaken, all the way through. It's either April, the last part of April, the beginning part of May. So we're going to be in the Gospel of John for a long time, and so that gives us opportunity to those who are in my scripture writing group gives us time to write it out. Those are writing it out. So I kind of put them together this time. Thought that would help for those of us who are gone. And to keep walking through it, as we dig it out and do what we're going to do. So I'm looking forward to that study. But I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate you ladies. It's the fact that you all are hanging in there this summer. I'm surprised. Summer is really the hardest time to get everybody to do stuff because everybody's on vacation and having a good time. And usually, it's really hard in the summer. But you ladies are faithful, aren't you? And I hope y'all are enjoying the book, Esther. Y'all enjoying the book of Esther?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I know I am.
Great discussions too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this has been.
This is cool. You should see Leviticus.
True. We are wild in Leviticus, ladies. We're wild people in Leviticus.
We'll never forget that book.
No, we won't. I don't think I will either. I think it's been one of the best classes I've ever done on the book of Leviticus.
God, I was crazy people in it.
Yeah. But we walked through it so slowly that I really have gotten it. And it really helps to get it, and it helps with a lot of what we study in the New Testament. So it's been a great study, and so I enjoy times with you all, and I think it's wonderful that you all are willing to walk through Esther. So, ladies, it's been great. I'm going to close this out in prayer, and that many of you all are starting a new study today in Heart to Heart, and I know you all got to get ready for that. And so let me close this in prayer so that you all can be released. And those of you who are in Leviticus, I will see you this afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I don't know what time for you, Lisa. You may not be there. Come to think about it, right? You're not coming, right?
I was still deciding.
Yeah, I just remembered that.
See what we're going to be doing today. We'll see.
Yeah,
It'll be short though, because the chapter's short.
Yeah, it's a short chapter. Pretty important principle laid down too. So anyway.
Let's pray.
Well,
Father, we glorify you. Thank you and praise you, God, for this time you gave us in Esther. We thank you, Lord God, for the moments of meditation, side notes, and everything that you revealed to us as we study through the book of Esther. Father, help us to be faithful and to what you've shown us, Lord God, and apply to our lives and share with others. We glorify you and praise you. In the name of the Lord Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.